Five Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to Monza. It's round 16 of the F1 World Championship. Verstappen leads the way. He was fastest in FP1. He leads the championship by 70 points. But is the race for first place still on? Lando Norris looked good this morning, but everyone is talking about Kimi Antonelli, the F1 prodigy from Mercedes, who got into that car this morning for FP1. Harry Benjamin, lead commentator this weekend. It didn't quite go to plan.
He crashed. And not the best of starts for Kimi Antonelli. That the 18-year-old wonder kid, really, as he's being touted as the man to replace Lewis Hamilton, crashed pretty early doors into the final corner Parabolica, lost the rear end into the gravel, into the wall. Certainly damage done to the car. I'm sure a little bit of damage done to the ego as well. It might have been a mixture of nerves and all the pressure and expectation placed upon him, perhaps. But look, he'll bounce back from this, and I'm sure Toto Wolff and the entire Mercedes and the junior academy team that look after the young drivers will rally round him. He's straight back into a car in Formula 2. In fact, he's just gone qualifying in F2, so he's straight back into it, and we'll see him again later this year in FP1, and I'm still certain we'll see him as Lewis Hamilton's replacement next year.
Yeah, he was in George Russell's car, so George Russell was watching on and saw his Mercedes slam into the tyre wall at Parabolica, which is not what you want to see, but they did get the car back, and I'm sure it will be out as usual in FP2, no problems. Beck Clancy, editor-in-chief at Autosport, is sitting to my left. It wasn't the introduction that Kimi Antonelli would have wanted, but actually he's still secure, and as Harry said, these things do happen. They've happened before to other people, as you said before in FP1. They'll happen again, and it doesn't blot his copybook, really.
No, not really. I think Mercedes will still confirm him in the next week or so. Toto Wolff was actually speaking in between these two sessions, and he, I think you may have stolen his words, Harry.
What did he say?
Did you? He said that it was
he wrote his words for him.
It was a bit of a mix of pressure and expectation. He said, clearly here, with everything piling up on him in Monza, that is very difficult to cope with. Is that the reason why he put it in the wall? Maybe. He goes on to say, I think the circumstances are guilty. You are under the magnifying glass because it all happens in Monza. It has been a while since an Italian driver was in a top team, and that can be a lot for an 18-year-old. So he certainly still has the backing of the team. He will be fine. He will be in that Mercedes, teammates with George Russell next year. It was unfortunate. He was pushing too hard. He probably should have taken a bit longer to get his eye in, but the track has been resurfaced. There probably wasn't as much grip as he was expecting. You live and learn.
Harry has a look of, I don't know quite what it is.
I just think Wolff probably should take a little bit more responsibility for the pressure that has been piled on to Kimi Antonelli, and I think he actually has done that, because he, in the last sort of couple of months, he did try and sort of backtrack a little bit from the spotlight that was being shoved on Antonelli. Let's not forget, 18 years old. If he had followed the traditional path that most young drivers do this year, he would have been racing in Formula 3. Mercedes elected for him to jump that category altogether and go straight in at Formula 2. That's only one rung down from Formula 1. And I just think that, Toto Wolff, in a way, you do reap what you sow. And that pressure, yes, there was always going to be pressure no matter what for a young rookie getting into an FP1 seat. But he has been made out as a wonder kid, the man to replace the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. So in a way, I mean, I'm surprised he didn't crash sooner.
Oh, crikey. 1 minute until the session starts. FP2, 1 hour on the clock, another hour for the drivers to feel their way into this track. Totally new surface. Different corner. Well, they've changed the curbs on some of the corners. You've said already that the drivers weren't particularly happy. Well, we'll see how happy they are at the end of this session and today. But Lando Norris looking pretty happy in his papaya orange, just getting his kit on. The Ferrari drivers have just went out and waved to all of the fans, which is really nice. The Tifosi. I always can't quite understand this. They pay a lot of money to come in and watch the race, watch FP1, whatever session they are lucky enough to see opposite their pit lane, but yet most of them have a giant flag over the top of them for the start, at least, of the session, if not the race. And I always think that's a really weird place to be, under a flag.
But it's the atmosphere, isn't it? It's all of that. It's having fun. It's, I'm sure they're all eating and drinking, and the Italian food is obviously amazing. The Tifosi supporting the Ferrari drivers.
But you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. But I'm sure they're not having the flag over their faces for the whole time. Is that you?
No.
It does get pulled in.
So basically, the organisers put the flag in the grandstand, and then they have people there directing them what to do with the flag. So it looks great when the cameras go, and then it pretty quickly, as soon as the track action starts, it gets pulled away. I mean, on a hot day like this, they must be absolutely baking under there, I would say, and you wouldn't want to be claustrophobic. But it looks cool.
It's not like they're being tucked up for bed, and being having to stay there for like 5 whole minutes.
Cars are on track. Harry, tell us what's going on.
59 minutes and 18 seconds remain of the second free practice session of the day, and indeed the green light is on at the end of the pit lane, and already there are cars on track, namely the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, the RB of Yuki Tsunoda, the Williams of Franco Colapinto, joined by Gasly, Magnussen, Zhou and Bottas, all making their way out onto the track. And actually, while we speak about Kimi Antonelli, we do need to speak about Franco Colapinto as well. If that's a name you are unfamiliar with, well, he is now a Formula One driver till the end of the year, replacing Logan Sargent, the American, who was in his second season with Williams. James Vowles electing after that big crash in free practice 3 in Zandvoort last time out, coupled with the fact that Sargent's pace is just not there at a crucial time where Williams need to be banking every point they possibly can in the fight lower down in the Constructors' Championship. They had a look around at what drivers were available, and in the end went with their own man from the Williams Academy, currently racing in Formula 2. Franco Colapinto becomes the youngest driver on the grid at the moment, just 21 years old, from Buenos Aires in Argentina, and he's got some decent form around here, back in his Formula 3 days, winning both in 2022 and 2023 around this circuit. So look out for Colapinto in the Williams. And actually, Bex, it's nice to see Colapinto as the choice, really. A lot of people were thinking Mick Schumacher, Liam Lawson. I was actually thinking Stoffel Van Dorn, but I was clearly barking up the wrong tree there. In the end, Colapinto's the man for Williams till the end of the year.
Yeah, it was a surprising choice, but I agree, I think it was the right choice. It's a good indictment, isn't it, of the Williams Young Driver Programme. He joined at the start of last year, or was it 2022? And he's...
Last year.
It was last year, right, I'm not going mad. It's a great choice, throw in a rookie. He's got 9 races to kind of show his skills. He's obviously not fighting for a seat next year because Carlos Sainz will be driving. Williams are currently 9th in the Constructors' Championship. They only have 4 points. But Alpine only have 13, just ahead of them. So it's very close. And James Vowles was saying earlier today that the reason that they made the decision after Zandvoort, you mentioned that big smash, and why it didn't happen in the summer break was because now Vowles feels like they have given the 2 drivers a car that can score points. So they need to be scoring the points. That massive smash obviously hurt them greatly, and he poured through, as you said, all of that data and just said, nah, we can't be doing this. Liam Lawson was an interesting choice, and the fact that Red Bull said no, I think is also very interesting, because they wanted to keep him just in case they need to replace Daniel Ricciardo or Sergio Perez between now and Abu Dhabi. And then they also looked at Mick Schumacher, but quite brutally said that he was good but not special. And that's sort of the feeling up and down the paddock. I know Toto Wolff's trying to get him a seat, but it's not happening. So yeah, it's a brave choice, but I think it's James Vowles continuing to make his mark on Williams, really, and I think that's a good thing.
Certainly is. Colapinto comes across the line for his first lap of the session to go third fastest on the medium tyre for Colapinto. Make that 4th as Lance Stroll comes across the line. So yeah, we'll be intrigued to see how Franco Colapinto gets on. He has got the number 43 on the Williams car. That's what he'll be running, and that's their I think that was their reserve driver number anyway. So we have seen Colapinto before this year, did do an FP1 session back for the British Grand Prix, but it's certainly a tough ask for Colapinto. Only found out on Monday, but will at least get I suppose an easier track to start off with before we then head to the likes of Baku and Singapore over the next few weeks, where it will be a real challenge for him. And it is this track that so many love here at Monza, the temple of speed. 5.7 kilometres just over that, 3.6 miles, 11 turns, 7 to the right and 4 to the left. Low downforce setup, incredibly high speeds reached of almost 350 kilometres an hour. It's a hugely demanding track, but one that usually throws up some enticing racing.
Just to let you know, George Russell still in the garage listening to headphones. He is not in the car, it's not ready yet. Keeping an eye on it for you, and we'll let you know. They reckon about 5 to 10 minutes until it's ready, so it will be out in FP2 after that massive crash in FP1 with Kimi Antonelli behind the wheel.
Also getting a little look at a bit of traffic coming into the chicane at turn 1. Lando Norris having to do a little bit of avoiding action with the Aston Martin. I think that was Lance Stroll, and Norris having to slam on the brakes, jinked out to the left, and then he also had a Sauber right behind him too. The Sauber also taking to the escape road where you have to straight line and weave your way through the polystyrene boards that feed you out onto the exit of turn 2 and through Curva Grande. So a little bit of traffic management going on, and actually, well, this is something perhaps we might well see in qualifying. We've seen some skirmishes over the years for Italian Grand Prix qualifying where they are always trying to get a tow or find some sort of advantage, and sometimes it can look a little bit silly.
Before I talk about that, can I just say I wish there was a camera in here, because every time you talk about drivers jinking to the left and to the right, you look like you're doing your dance moves. It's like Harry's just sat there having a great time dancing away in the comms box.
Helps me describe it for the radio.
Yes, this one is an interesting one because people want the tow. It's obviously worth a lot of time, and track position is everything. We have that ridiculous situation, which, to be fair to the FIA, they've tried to clamp down on, but suddenly everybody's at a standstill, and then everyone's racing to cross the line in time to get the final lap through. We've mentioned it already, haven't we, about how this track has been resurfaced, so it's evolving very quickly throughout the race weekend. And it does get a bit ridiculous here, doesn't it?
It does, and just to bring you up to speed with what has happened, so the entire track has been resurfaced and the facilities have been modernised as well, and to the furore of some of the drivers, some of the curbs have been changed as well and slightly reprofiled, particularly going through the Della Rosa chicane of 4 and 5. There's a 2.5 metre gravel strip that's been added, 1 metre from the track edge, and then through Ascari the curbs are now flat there, which a lot of the drivers feel loses a bit of the charm of the old school circuit. So we're still seeing how that unfolds. When we look at the screens, it certainly doesn't look like it's detracted much from the actual spectacle of it, but we know the drivers very much enjoy that part of the circuit. But of course the resurfacing of the entire track, Andrew Benson, the BBC's F1 correspondent, can really affect the running order of the cars. It can affect track temperatures, and we know that can have a mighty effect on the likes of Mercedes as well running at this circuit.
Yeah, so it's a kind of it's a philosophical objection the drivers have, really, to do with particularly Ascari. There's 2 situations have happened. The track's been resurfaced. Now Monza had quite an old surface. It was quite bumpy, and a number of the drivers, including Lewis Hamilton and Alex Albon, said yesterday that's not necessarily a problem. You know, bumps give tracks characters as long as they're not, too painful. Then particularly and specifically on Ascari, it was unique because it wasn't so much the height of the curbs themselves, although you did have to stay off them. It was that between the curb and the track there was a small drain which dropped down a few centimetres. And both Russell and Alex Vert, the Grand Prix Drivers Association chairman, were saying that it was a real skill. What you needed to do was try and hook your inside front wheel into that little drain, and that would just kind of drag the car around the corner. And if you got that right or wrong, it gave you either oversteer or understeer. And it's why some of the TV pictures from Ascari were so thrilling, really, because you could see that slide happening. I didn't know about the existence of this drain, by the way, until George Russell was talking about it yesterday. But I did certainly know that Ascari always looked pretty special. And Alex Verts used the word cool, if you got that right as a driver. And it was a unique feature of that particular corner on this particular track. And if you take that away and just flatten the curbs out, these are like standard F1 curbs now that they've installed all around Monza. The drivers are going, look, the whole point of these classic tracks like Monza, Spa, Silverstone, Monaco, Suzuka, is that they keep the feel of classic tracks. There's no point turning them into modern versions of classic tracks. It's their uniqueness and history and character that makes them as special as they are. If you take that away, it sounds esoteric about curbs being part of that character, but they are. If you take that away, they cease to become as special and as historic as they were. And the drivers are saying, look, you didn't even ask us about this. At least consult us and we'll give you an opinion. And as Russell said at the end of his comments yesterday, we could have saved somebody a job on this one.
Oh, sorry, Andrew. 49 minutes and 48, 47, 46 seconds remain of free practice 2. And does it mean that just drop off mid-sentence?
I mean, it could have been the end of a sentence.
Well, we were sort of communicating in here as well. So,
but we were just waiting for more.
Yeah.
But it was a mic drop moment.
Back.
It was good.
Yeah.
Just to update you slightly, Sergio Perez has had his gearbox replaced. It's precautionary, but that's why he's not out quite yet. He joins on the sub-bench, waiting to go out for FP2, George Russell. So both of them still waiting to go out.
And Esteban Ocon cutting over the grass at the first chicane. We've seen a lot of cars getting it wrong there, particularly Max Verstappen in free practice 1, locking up, going deep. This is the sound of Kevin Magnussen, a replay on board with the Haas. He turns in for the first chicane and then just does not get the front end biting and has to bail out. And there is now a gravel strip there where there used to be a bollard. I think Franco Colapinto has quite a big lock-up going in to turn 1 as well on the front left. He still does manage to get it locked in, but I wonder if he'd been better off in saving that tyre and still cutting across the track. To sort of follow up on what Andrew was saying, obviously, about the nature of this track now. Yes, there's clearly a lot of heritage involved in that Ascari chicane change, but equally with these track resurfacing, I think it was Alex Albon who said in FP1 as well how high the track evolution is going to be now too. So we're constantly going to see lap times improving. Indeed, fastest lap time at the moment is a 1:21.605 on the medium tyre. That goes to Lando Norris. I'll take it all back. It's a 1:21.264 now from Carlos Sainz, who's just crossed the timing screen and gone top. Then it's Norris, Hamilton, Piastri, Ricciardo is 5th. Leclerc, Hülkenberg, Gasly, Magnussen, Alonso is 10th ahead of Ocon, Bottas, Albon, Colapinto, Lance Stroll is 15th. Then it's Tsunoda and Verstappen with no lap times yet from Sergio Perez, with work very much going on at the rear end of that car, up on the jacks in the garage, and as Jenny said, with a precautionary gearbox change. George Russell still not out yet either, after Kimi Antonelli crashed the British Racers car in FP1, so Mercedes still repairing that, so that is taking a little bit longer, I think, than they would have liked. Russell losing out on crucial time, so too for Perez, with both teams trying to get to the problems of their flaws, really. Red Bull running back-to-back flaws, so too are Mercedes, or that was the plan initially. Jenny?
And you can see the urgency with the mechanics, and you can tell when they're up against it, and this is a moment when I think Perez's side of the garage are really up against it, and it's just a different chemistry, isn't it, that you can feed off. So yeah, they're desperately trying to get Sergio Perez out. I'm surprised that gearbox has taken so long to change. Normally they could do that quite quickly, so I wonder if it was precautionary, but I wonder at what point they found that and made the decision to take it out and switch it for a new gearbox.
Well, we'll see, and we'll let you know as soon as they appear out on the track. Charles Leclerc is just starting a lap as well in an upgraded Ferrari, who have brought some performance upgrades this weekend. Gets up to almost 350 kilometres an hour, just shy of that, 340. Slams on the brakes, turns it in to the first corner of the chicane, of the Rettifilo chicane, into the right, then through the left of the exit out of 2. Then it's through the slight right-hander of Curva Grande, foot flat to the floor, and Alpine getting dangerously close. That was Pierre Gasly just getting out of the way before Leclerc slams onto the brake, chucks it into the left-hander that makes up the De La Rocha chicane, then out through the right, the gravel to your left. You actually get a little bit more leeway now before you're immediately into the slightly off-cambered right-hander of Lesmo 1 that feeds you into the right-hander of Lesmo 2, slightly downhill as you start coming back on yourself, and the short run down towards the Ascari chicane, heading under the bridge. The shadows overcast that scarlet red Ferrari. Leclerc fastest of anybody in the middle sector. Slight touch on the brakes into the left-hander of Ascari. A jink to the right, then out through the left-hander of turn 10 before another straight all the way down to the final corner. The Parabolica, renamed the Alboreto curve in the last couple of years, but everyone still calls it the Parabolica. Eases onto the brake pedal, chucks it through the right hand. A nice smooth steering from the Monegasque out of the final corner, cuts across the line. Fastest so far from Charles Leclerc, a 1:21, 1:19 on the medium tyre, to the rather polite applause of the Tifosi, who have come out and escaped work on a Friday to come and enjoy and see their Ferrari favourites around Ferrari's home track.
Can you think of anything better? If you're an Italian, to just duck out of work on a Friday and go and watch your cars. And the access at Monza is so amazing. You can see everything. You can even go under the tunnel and watch all the drivers arrive. It's a Friday. What a perfect Friday.
Have you ever been to the Tuscan coast?
Yes, a little bit.
I see your point.
If you're a Tifosi, then this is where you want to be.
It's amazing, actually. When you drive in and when you leave, as you say, the access is incredible, because when we walk into the paddock, it's an absolute fight to get in because of the number of Tifosi standing there. And they put so much effort in, don't they? The T-shirts, the flags, everything that they get, the banners, everything they create. It's absolutely amazing. And you see when the Ferrari drivers arrive, and the noise is amazing. And actually, with Lewis Hamilton arriving as well now, they are really embracing him already, and he hasn't even joined yet. So he was saying in his Thursday press conference, he's starting to feel and understand what that's going to be like, because he was saying he's had the most incredible reception since he's arrived here. Just very quickly on Mercedes, because George Russell is still in the garage. This morning, when Antonelli had his crash, he was using the new updated floor, so obviously not great for Mercedes with the data, and Hamilton had the old floor. That is switching this afternoon, so Hamilton has the new floor on for this FP2 session, and Russell, if he finally gets out, will have the old one. And they said the reasoning for that was that they get the most accurate read, so I guess their money was on Hamilton not crashing.
Very nice, yeah. I think that's probably the right call. It's interesting, you talk about how the Tifosi is so now accepting of Hamilton. I watched in the build-up this week, part of my prep, the 2011 Italian Grand Prix. And partly because that's the one where Liuzzi literally smashes out half the field going into turn one, lap one. And Hamilton, I can't remember if he won it or got onto the podium, but he definitely was talking about being on the podium, and how it was a shame that he was booed so much for being a McLaren driver, getting onto the podium at the Tifosi's home track. But how things, have gone since then for him. And now I think they literally see him as a Ferrari driver already. It's a shame for Carlos Sainz, because, as Sainz has said it, there's nothing wrong with their relationship at the moment, Sainz and Ferrari. But when there's a 7-time world champion on the market who wants to end his career at Ferrari, Sainz is the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, I mean, there's two very different weekends for them, isn't it? Hamilton absolutely loving the environment that he's about to walk into. And it's funny, because we're actually talking about the second Italian race this year. You could almost forget that Imola happened, because this is very much the home race for Ferrari. Carlos Sainz is an excellent driver and would only really be replaced by Hamilton. And he was actually talking as well, wasn't he, on Thursday? He's sad to be leaving, and it's a difficult weekend for him, what he's saying goodbye to. But it's that Nigel Mansell always said it, didn't he? That once you're part of the Ferrari family, you're always part of the Ferrari family. And so they'll always embrace him. They'll always love Sainz. I mean, he learned Italian. I remember talking to the head of comms at Ferrari, a lovely lady called Silvia, who said that did an interview with Carlos Sainz, and he said, I said, how's your Italian going? Oh, no, not very good, not very good. And at the end of the interview, Silvia said to me, he's fluent, and he learnt it in a few weeks. So he'll always be in Ferrari hearts, I'm sure.
Don't ever underestimate a driver's ability to learn a new language.
It's so fast. It's unbelievable. I know.
Nico Rosberg, 6 languages, and fluently.
If you only speak one language in the paddock, you are very much in the minority.
Yeah, it doesn't really happen. Even Lewis Hamilton started to learn Italian.
You've got a bit of French in you, haven't you, Jen?
Absolutely. Canal Plus. That's my speciality. I mean, after the stroke, I don't know what French I've got. Exactly. And I just have to say, although everyone is Tifosi and wearing Ferrari stuff, there is one person in the stands, isn't there, Harry, that isn't wearing something to do with Ferrari?
shout out to Paul Coulthard. I'm not sure if you're a relation or not, who has gone to Monza,
or David?
to DC. I'm not sure if you're a relation, you pee in the grandstand.
It's the Harry's PR man, really.
Yeah. He's this guy is a big fan, clearly, of the BBC F1 commentary team, and he's had printed onto a shirt, eyes to the lights, foot to the floor, which I'm very chuffed with. I'm honoured, actually.
To coin the phrase, Harry, that's good. You should trademark that.
I think I need that. I think I need it trademarked, clearly. And clearly I need a merch design as well now. So I'm sure that'll be coming soon to your local branch of... Well, I shouldn't say any names, should I? But that's exciting then. Thank you very much to Paul for that one. 40 minutes and 5 seconds remaining. Leclerc is currently fastest. Hamilton is second, but it's Oscar Piastri who is lighting up the timing screens for McLaren and across the line. Actually lost a little bit of time in that final sector, but his first 2 sectors were good enough, putting on the soft tyre, and he goes to the top and then is immediately displaced by his teammate Lando Norris, but it's only 7 thousandths of a second between them, and that is a mighty first showing from the two McLarens. But Leclerc third on the medium tyre, Hamilton on the soft 3/10 back, then it's Sainz the top 5, Stroll 6th, Verstappen down in 7th on the medium tyre. He's in the pits at the moment, along with Albon, Gasly, Ricciardo with the top 10, Hülkenberg's 11th, Ocon, then Magnussen, Tsunoda, Alonso's 15th, Bottas 16th ahead of Colapinto, Joe, Perez still not out yet with a precautionary gearbox change, and Russell still not out yet after the team are repairing the car from Kimi Antonelli's incident within it. Here's Hamilton on the radio.
Yeah, there's no one out here, mate, got no tow.
Yeah, copy that.
Hamilton saying there's no one out here, mate, I've got no tow. So they're clearly trying to see if they can sort of orchestrate a tow for qualifying tomorrow. Can really be a massive boost around this circuit, such as the nature of this high-speed track. I should just offer my apologies as well. I got my 2011-2012 Italian Grand Prix a little bit mixed up. Liuzzi did crash in 2011, but Hamilton won on the podium in 2012. Finished 4th and 11th. So just before anyone comes at me.
Note to self. Good. Is this a circuit and a track and a race where actually having a number 1 and 2 driver does help the team, because then they can sacrifice one driver for the other if the tow is so important?
How many times did we see this though with like Alonso and Massa at Ferrari over the years, and they always got it wrong somehow? It just never works. I just think and everyone then starts to get muddled up behind each other. Then before you know it, I can't remember what year it is, but there was a whole gaggle, and half of them didn't get across the line in time to do their final qualifying.
That was only a few years ago.
Exactly. It was, and so I just think, okay, if you get it right, then yes, it can really give you a few tenths of lap time for sure. But half of me is like, to be honest, go out there on your own, do your own thing is a safer bet.
What the teams actually try to do is, rather than using each other, they try and get both drivers to use a competitor, a rival, to then get the tow so that they don't have to sacrifice either, which also ends up in the same camp of not really working, and then everyone's fighting to cross the line before the clock runs out, and it's an absolute mess, this one. The FIA, as I said earlier, they have tried to clamp down on this with minimum speeds and all this stuff, so you can't actually be stationary on a racetrack, which, as you can imagine, is as dangerous as it sounds. It hasn't really worked. The FIA like to tweak regulations rather than just doing it properly. But anyway, I could be here all day moaning about the FIA. Hamilton radio.
Cornering is strong, just that make losses are the lack of tow. Maybe a little bit to be found in turn 1-2.
And here's someone laughing in the background.
Someone's having a great time at Mercedes in the background.
Oh, the champagne is flowing in that garage, isn't it?
Oh dear, I wonder what Hamilton is really thinking in that car, trying to put his best lap times, and all he can focus on is the person who's laughing in the background of Bono's message there to him. Hamilton is currently 4th fastest at the moment, and Magnussen out there at the moment as well, and I think, are we going to see another Mercedes imminently, Jenny?
Yes, George Russell is just on his outlap, so is Sergio Perez, both of them in the garage for slightly longer than they'd have hoped, both now out on the medium tyre.
Magnussen coming across the line now. He puts his hat up into 7th. He is one of the drivers who is still yet to have a seat. He joins the likes of Valtteri Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, Daniel Ricciardo, and that's pretty much it at the moment. Where they will go next year, if they will remain in Formula One. Bex, we just saw on our screens a few moments ago Mattia Binotto, who is the former team principal of Ferrari, and just before the summer break was announced as joining the Sauber Audi operation. I believe the Chief Technical Officer and Chief Operations Officer, I think he's doing at the moment, and with Jonathan Wheatley then coming in as the team principal. That is, I suppose, now the only seat available. Russell?
I've got something moving around in my cockpit.
Okay, copy that. Whereabouts in the cockpit is it?
I think it's a nut, which is just going to my seat, so I think it's okay.
So there's a loose nut then in the cockpit of George Russell's Mercedes. So clearly they've left something off then when bolting it all up and getting ready to go.
I'd be pitting with that, wouldn't you?
I would definitely, especially as it's just flagged that up to the FIA.
There's always something left over after you put a little piece of furniture together, though.
It's not a Lego kit or another kit that could be available that you could put together.
Well, we'll see how they deal with that. I'm sure he'll come back into the pits and they'll just have a quick route around and see what they can find. Bottas is on a decent lap, but he's coming up some traffic right about now, coming down to the Parabolica. So that final seat is what is available at Sauber, soon to become Audi, which is what Mattia Binotto and Jonathan Wheatley will be deciding upon who will get that seat. You've got your eyes and ears to the ground, Bex. Who do you think is going to get that second seat?
Well, Bottas is looking good for it at the moment, isn't he? He's certainly tweeting cryptic, not so cryptic pictures of very nice Audi cars, although perhaps that's his manager trying to get him in. He would be a good choice for them, actually, as we see Bottas' girlfriend, Tiffany Cromwell.
Isn't his manager Toto Wolff?
Is it still?
Well, the same management company. I'm pretty sure Wolff was quite instrumental in getting in that Sauber seat in the first place.
Yeah. It would be good to see Bottas at Audi. Mattia Binotto, it was interesting. You just mentioned he came up on our screen there. As soon as he saw the camera was on him, he scuttled off into the back of the garage and he didn't want to be in shot. Yes, he's got a couple of jobs, but that was the same when he was at Ferrari. He had a couple of jobs, and that obviously didn't quite work out for him. So it's an interesting decision that Audi have gone down that route. Jonathan Wheatley is a great hire, popular in the paddock. He's done a lot of very good work for Red Bull. I'm not sure there's anybody in the paddock who knows the rule book better than him. He is absolutely second to none on that one, and I personally think he was crucial in a lot of what happened in 2021. Not that we want to go back there, but he's a very, very strong choice for them as well.
Yeah, I find that really curious. The timing as well, just after Adrian Newey's gone, now Jonathan Wheatley's gone. Those are two major cornerstones to the Red Bull organisation. And you know, I know Wheatley fairly well, and I find it intriguing now that he has chosen this time to leave Red Bull, where he's been all of his career really, since they've established anyway, the last 20 years, and he's always been kind of the right-hand man to Christian Horner, and now he's stepping away and he's going to be the mouthpiece of a whole new team. And the timing is intriguing and the role is intriguing, and as you say, people most likely know him as the voice of Red Bull through the 2021 season. He was always on the button to Michael Massey, the race director at the time, saying, what about this, what about that, this is the way it should be going. So yeah, he's a very strong character individual and he knows the rules like nobody else. You're absolutely right.
Just to bring it back to some of the on-track action, I think Red Bull are in a spot of bother so far this weekend. We've just seen Verstappen run wide again at the Parabolica. He's just not able to get that car turned in at the moment. Look, we can never fully judge in practice. We don't know fuel loads, but Verstappen at the moment is down in 13th, Perez at 14th, Hamilton on the radio.
Yeah, lost in turn one now.
It could be late.
That seat's so hot, mate.
Okay, Roger.
I think that was Hamilton talking about his seat being hot, which was something he said in FP1 as well. So clearly a couple of temperature issues that Mercedes are having to work through. Something that just caught my eye. Albon is currently 12th fastest with a 1:21.5. Colapinto I'm pretty sure they're on level tyres on the soft. He's only a couple of tenths off him. Is actually faster in the first and second sector. Lost a lot of time in the final sector to Colapinto compared to Albon. But I would say this is pretty good evolution for Colapinto. It's still early stages with just over half an hour left of free practice 2. But we'll see where both Williams drivers end up at the moment. But if Colapinto can stay around that mark for qualifying, I'd say that was a pretty fair effort for his debut Formula One Grand Prix weekend. But we'll keep up to speed with how that all rolls in. Hamilton has just come into the pits. Norris is 0.03 of a second slower in second. Then it's Sainz. It's quite tight at the top at the moment. Russell.
My seat feels very hot.
Yeah, A-Film George getting the same reports from Lewis.
So both Mercedes drivers experiencing very hot seats. I'm not sure I've really come across that too often, with both drivers experiencing hot seats at the moment. Russell had a delayed start to this session because of the car still being repaired from FP1 after Antonelli hit the wall. Had a loose nut in the somewhere in his seat originally. Curious, Jenny.
I do remember Lewis talking about the fact that he had a hot bottom and a hot seat when we first had the changeover to hybrid. That was 2014 then. And I do remember him saying that, and I can't remember. What's happened?
Car off. I think that is, if we see through the smoke, it's Hulkenberg in the Haas who has gone on at the second Lesmo. Oh, it's Magnussen in the Haas, my apologies. He was gone on at turn 7. He said he's okay. It looks like he has indeed hit the wall coming through the second of the right-handers, turn 7, and gone straight through the gravel and gone front in to the wall. He's just putting the car just taking the wheel out of the car and placing it on the top of the cockpit just in front of him. So he said he's okay on the radio. That's brought out a red flag as he now lumbers his way out. And we don't really see too many incidents from Magnussen in practice sessions. It was actually his teammate Hulkenberg who was finding every off possible in the free practices last time out in Zandvoort. This is the sound of Magnussen. Comes through the right hand with the second Lesmo, loses the rear completely. Round he goes. There was absolutely nothing Magnussen could do to stop that from happening. Just seemed like it was quite a loose rear from K-Mag. Carrying a lot of speed, and round he goes. And as we said at the start, this is one of the, I suppose, the trials and tribulations of a great track like Monza, an old school track, is if you make a mistake like that or the car has an issue, then you find yourself in the gravel. Hard to slow yourself down or avoid a wall.
Probably shouldn't have been pushing quite so hard through that corner then.
Well,
it was very similar to Antonelli in FP1.
It was very similar.
It was so similar, different corner, but taking too much speed into the corner and you lose it.
You can't say there was nothing he could do about it. That was driver error.
I think you can. Magnussen on the radio.
What's the situation, Kev? I'm in the wall. Sorry. Copy.
I'm in the wall, is what K-Mag said. No, well, okay, well, where's the line then? Do you draw? A driver's got to push, right? They've got to find the limit of the car, right? And yeah, it's always going to be, at the end of the day, a driver error. But an experienced driver like Kevin Magnussen, he knows what he's doing in a free practice session. It doesn't crash very normally. So, yes, you've got to push in these sessions. And okay, on that moment, lost the rear and into the wall he went. But there wasn't much you could do after that.
Not after.
But also during, you've got to push. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
It's not like me driving through. I'm not popping off to the supermarket on Sunday afternoon and pushing too hard to get through a red light. I don't do that, by the way.
I will die on this hill.
But it's his mistake. And I get it. They're still learning this track. We've talked about it before. It's the new surface. It's the track evolution. They're on their quali sim, well, sort of semi quali sim laps. Not quite, obviously, not FP3 yet. But they're out on the soft tyres, pushing, and he ends up in the wall. This is.
Just over 25 minutes remaining of the second free practice session. A red flag currently for Kevin Magnussen Haas, who's just found the wall. It's Lewis Hamilton, who currently is the fastest ahead of Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz, expecting McLaren to be strong once again. But it's Red Bull at the moment who seem to be on the back foot. Just a quick interlude there to Five Live Sports
Save your skin.
I nearly said after an incident he couldn't prevent. Kevin Magnussen has found the wall and is currently in the barriers, and that is the reason for the red flag. But the clock continues to count down, so that's a shame for Haas. One driver down for FP2, and Did Haas bring... I don't think they brought anything spectacular this weekend. They did bring some front suspension, actually, did Haas, as a performance gain. So that might have taken a little bit of damage from Magnussen finding the wall there. But everybody then back into the garage. Good timing for both Mercedes drivers, so they can take a look at why those seats are so hot.
That's true, but George Russell is down on running time. He lost a lot when Kimi Antonelli crashed in FP1 and they couldn't get the car out at the beginning of FP2, so he's down on time. Also, Sergio Perez is down on time. They haven't done as many laps as everyone else, just 3 laps for Perez, 6 laps for Russell. And this red flag clock's still counting down. Can be costly for them. It could also be costly for Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, obviously with Perez, but they're both at 13th and 14th at the moment, which isn't, I think, where Red Bull would like to be at the moment. They have done medium running, but...
Yeah, but I mean, Andrew Benson, BBC F1 correspondent, this is, as Jenny said, bad news for the likes of George Russell.
It is bad news for Russell, yeah. He's lost an entire morning, obviously, with Antonelli, and then he's lost about 24 minutes of it, so now he's losing more time. So on this heat thing with Mercedes, basically, it happens quite often with Formula 1 cars. A lot of electrical components are packed around the It's obviously it's quite hard to get everything in the right place in a Formula 1 car. There's not a lot of room. That's where they tend to put that stuff. And sometimes it overheats, especially when it's 32 degrees, which it is here at Monza at the moment. And so I'm not surprised that the Mercedes drivers are struggling a bit with the heat. But I'm sure the team will be able to find a way to sort that out in time for tomorrow, hopefully.
Let's hope. Thank you, Andrew. The red flag continues to be out while Kevin Magnussen's Haas is recovered. So for the likes of George Russell, indeed for Sergio Perez, who are down on track time in this session, Magnussen is just working out how to get back to the paddock, currently talking to some of the marshals, but he's all the way on the other side, actually, so it's going to be a little bit of a trek for him. But a wave to the fans for K-Mag as his stricken car gets taken away. Is this the last we'll see of Kevin Magnussen in Formula 1 this year? Not this race, but he's counting down to the end of his Formula 1 career again.
After the crash, that was his fault, you mean?
Just seen another picture of it, and you know what? I wonder if the wind actually was a bit of a factor.
0.4.
No, I think it may well be the end of the road for the second time for K-Mag. This time I think it actually is the end of the road for him. He's showed himself to be a great team player. He's on 10 penalty points out of the 12 that you can get before you get an automatic race ban. A lot of that is because he took one for the team, as it were, to use a football analogy. But he is being completely outperformed by Hülkenberg at the moment. It's why Audi came knocking for Hülkenberg, because he has been impressive on his own second time out in F1. So yes, I think Magnussen probably not performing where he would want to be, where the team want him to be, and I think this is probably the end of the road. Very, very popular figure within the paddock, so people will be sad to see him leave it. When he rejoined, I remember being in Bahrain for his first race back, and everyone was ecstatic to see him. But yes, sadly, I think in this cruel world of F1, I'm not sure I can see where he goes, and the rumour mill is only strengthening that Bottas has got that. Well, they're offering him a 1-year contract to stay on at Sauber, basically. So that's that seat gone. Where would he go, Jen?
I think he'll go back to what was plan B, which was leave F1, and I think there is something about him which says he's okay with that. He's had his bite of the cherry. He's kind of enjoyed his time in F1. He's made some headlines, he's made some good friends, he had podiums, and he started off so well at McLaren, and I think he's ticked that box and he was ready. He wasn't expecting to come back at Haas, and he was about to go into the World Endurance Championship. He was going to race in America, and I had a good friend who is Danish, and he was all ready to move out to America to cover his races, and then all of a sudden had to go back and not rent the flat he was due to rent, so he could come back and cover F1. So I think he and his dad Jan, who was a great, still is a great driver, can have a future together, driving together, which is something that Max Verstappen's talked about so many times to do with Jos.
Yeah.
So it is an ambition, I think, and I think he'll be quite happy to leave F1 and go, okay, job done.
And he leads with that brilliant pole position at Brazilian Grand Prix.
That was
for 2022.
emotional,
Do you remember? We were all, as the rain started to fall, we thought, oh my goodness, I think he's got it. And everyone was so happy for him.
And actually, I mean, how brilliant is this? We're just seeing, because Magnussen's kind of stuck at the moment waiting for a lift home, so he's right by one of the grandstands on the inside of the second Lesmo, signing autographs, taking pictures. He's got a young family as well, hasn't he? So look, an incredibly popular figure in the paddock, but at the end of the day, I think he's had a good run in Formula One and driven for quite a few teams and had a few second careers over the course of his Formula One season. Maybe perhaps a little bit unfair. They didn't quite get the shot at McLaren that we all thought he could have got. In the end, made way for Fernando Alonso. Again, a bit like Sainz, was a sacrificial lamb for Alonso coming back into Formula One or coming back to McLaren. So what could have been for Lando Norris, but that is Formula One. It's a lot of what coulda, shoulda and woulda.
I'll tell you who he won't be popular with is George Russell. He's desperate to get back out in that Mercedes. The clock is counting down. It's almost at 20 minutes remaining, and he still needs to do some decent running out there. They're trying to compare flaws. A lot of people out there trying to compare flaws and find out which direction they're going to take. A lot of upgrades for Ferrari. So valuable time being lost because of Magnussen. But at least he's happy signing autographs at Lesmo and...
Indeed, for K-Mag, who is a fan favourite. Race control session will resume at 17:42 local time, so in a couple of minutes. One team we haven't really spoken about so far this weekend, Bex, is Alpine. Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. While on track, they're not really doing much to be talked about. Off track, there was a lot of things going on with that team at the moment, and the Renault branch, the engine manufacturer in Viry. What can you tell us on that?
A lot's going on, Harry, as you say. So Renault have announced what they are describing as a consultation to end the F1 engine program. I think a lot of people have read that for what it is, which means they are ending it. Viry only really exists because of the F1 engine. And so 100 people from their Social and Economic Council, as it's called, have travelled to Monza today to protest. They are in the grandstands and they've got two banners and they say Alpine Renault PU engine for 2026, let us race. It says save 50 years of French Formula One, and then it names all the years that they have been champion. They are also striking in the factory today. They have been quite clear that they won't do anything which will stop the on-track activities, but they want to make their voices clear that they are not happy about the closure. You can completely understand that. Flavio Briatore, who has been brought back into the fold of Renault Alpine, he's saying he's not the bad guy. The decision was made before he came back, but it does look like the end of the road, and as is absolutely their right, they are protesting their unhappiness with it, and they've said a large majority of Renault's engine staff at Viry will go on strike simultaneously to express what they're saying. Their discontent in a respectful but determined atmosphere.
Thanks, Bex. Yeah, so a lot going on behind the scenes for Renault and of course the Formula One team known as Alpine, and you can keep across with all of that on the BBC Sport website as it unfolds. But back to the track action. We're back underway. Green light on at the end of the pit lane, and it's 17 minutes and 26 seconds remain, and no surprises, George Russell is eager to find himself some space to get, 17 minutes of solid action underneath his belt. His first proper bit of track action for the Mercedes driver as they continue to try and get to the bottom of the problems with their floor at the moment. Indeed, there is some expectation that due to the resurfaced track here at Italy, it might not be quite good for Mercedes because tyre temperature management is a bit of an issue for those teams, and a brand new surface does change the temperatures experienced on the tyres. Pirelli have brought the softest tyres in the range to deal with that. The C5 soft, the C4 medium and the C3 hard all in action. Everybody going out at the moment on a mixture of the soft and the medium as the RB heads out into the pit lane of Daniel Ricciardo with the left-hand side pod covered in fluoro paint and to part of the halo as well. Just pulls over to the right-hand side to try and do a practice start at the end of the pit lane before he gets back out onto the track. But then Russell into the braking zone of the first chicane for his first proper run. He has done a lap early doors, but that's 6 seconds off the pace before he had that issue with perhaps a loose nut in the cockpit of his car. But Russell on his way then through Curva Grande and towards the braking zone of the De La Roja chicane with a little bit of company behind as well, but clear traffic in front of him too for George Russell. The sun shines down on the Silver Arrow. Glorious temperatures in Monza. Air temperature just over 33 degrees. Track temperature 46.6 degrees. So beautiful conditions. A world away from the wind and the rain that we experienced in Zandvoort. But so far, Russell finding a little bit of time as he gets up to speed on the medium tyre.
I'm very intrigued by Franco Colapinto. As you pointed out earlier, Harry, he's not a million miles away from Alex Albon in the Williams. His first time in the F1 car in a proper session, his first race, Hamilton Radio.
Seat's got really hot again. Bottom of the seat.
Okay, copy.
Complaining about his seat being hot again. Yeah, and he doesn't seem too far away. And often when you put a new driver in a car, you can actually see the gap, and a different driver from Logan Sargent can highlight, actually, is Alex Albon doing the job that he should be doing? And we know he's a proven driver, he's got great experience, but it's really interesting to see the comparison between the two, and we'll track it as we go through the weekend, and you should get more of a picture as actually how this does reflect both of the drivers.
Yeah, I think what Colapinto has been very good at today, and I'm sure the message given to him was be patient. So as I said earlier, Antonelli had 1 hour, pushed as hard as he could, and he obviously made that mistake. Colapinto has 9 race weekends to, try and become an F1 driver full time. He's being very smart about it. If you look at Alex Albon, who, by the way, I regard very highly, I think is an excellent driver, but he's not exactly had a difficult teammate to beat in the last year and a half in Sargent. And so, whether Colapinto will give him more of a challenge, I suspect not, would be my gut feeling. But it's good to see Colapinto, he's right up there, and he's not, as it stands at the moment, he's not making any mistakes.
Fastest in the speed trap is Colapinto in sector 1, and it's Albon fastest in the speed trap in the second sector. So Williams do have a good history of going well around Monza. Colapinto's just come across the line, actually. He hasn't improved his time at the moment. 16th fastest. Magnussen Albon just coming to the end of his outlap as we see some more long run simulations occurring in the last 15 or so minutes that we will get of free practice too. Of course, we'll get another and final practice session tomorrow at 12:30 in local time, but 13 minutes remain of FP1. It's Hamilton ahead of Norris. Sainz is third, Piastri fourth, then it's Leclerc fifth, Hülkenberg is sixth ahead of Ricciardo, Alonso is eighth, Stroll ninth, and Bottas rounds out the top 10. Then it's Magnussen, who is now out of the session after a crashing at the exit of the second Lesmo. Albon is 12th ahead of the two Red Bulls of Verstappen and Perez. Tsunoda is 15th, Colapinto is 16th, 17th Gasly ahead of his teammate Ocon. Then it's Joe and Russell still 20th and last, but finding time on his latest lap around. Back to the Colapinto, that talking point actually is a bit of a nice segue in a relation to the Red Bull problem at the moment, which we continue to talk about. Bex, what do you know about the timeline for Sergio Perez and where his future lies? And the bigger picture, I suppose, as well, as to why they haven't just put Liam Lawson in or a Yuki Tsunoda, and the faith that shows in their own junior team.
So there are some things that really bamboozle me about the Perez situation. Why, for example, was he handed a 2-year contract extension at the start of June, and then in July we're discussing whether or not he will be returning after the summer break? He does. The team put their faith in him, and then a couple of days later, if I'm a timeline, if I remember it correctly, we're suddenly talking about Singapore, and how actually Singapore could be quite another crucial moment in his career, and whether or not the team stick with him. the fact that Williams have gone with Colapinto tells us so much, because James Vowles probably maybe telling us stuff that Red Bull would have preferred they didn't. They couldn't have Liam Lawson because Red Bull want to keep hold of him for their stable, because we've got Perez underperforming. Danny Rick isn't looking great either. He's underperforming. They do have Liam Lawson sat there waiting in the wings, who was in the car this time last year, impressing, replacing Daniel Ricciardo with his broken hand, who they very much would like to get into a car. But as James Vowles has spoken of earlier today actually, it's really difficult to replace a driver mid-season. Red Bull are no stranger to that, obviously. We've already discussed Nick de Vries. Alex Albon's had it done to him himself. It's really, really difficult to do. It's not something you do lightly. So there is still a lot of pressure on Perez, who, I mean, at the moment, there's no pressure because Verstappen's 13th and Perez is 14th. So that's about as close as they've been to each other in as long as I can remember. But not obviously down the wrong end of the grid from where they would want to be. And then you have the Danny Rick conundrum, don't you, with... He's very much Horner's man, and Horner very much wants to keep him in that seat and wants him to succeed. But again, another extremely popular figure within the paddock, but it's not really working out for him, is it?
Where's the brutality gone from Red Bull in their junior drivers and just being able to cut and run? It's not, we've seen them ditch drivers before over less.
I think the power play that we have spoken about regularly this season has come into effect here slightly. Obviously, the battle between, or can I call it a battle? Perhaps that's too strong a word, between Helmut Marko, the senior advisor, who is actually supposed to be in charge of the young driver program, and Christian Horner. That, as far as we are told, is all put to bed and everyone's best friends again. But don't underestimate that these things rumble on in the background. Who gets to say? As I've already mentioned, Danny Rick is very much Horner's man.
I get that, but for like a Tsunoda, if they clearly don't rate him high enough to go in the top team, then what's the point in having him in the RB team?
Well, that's the key question, isn't it? And I don't know why they haven't taken the decision to switch out.
So that to me doesn't, the power play I don't think affects that so much, because Tsunoda just almost seems like he's outside of it all, really. But clearly they like him enough to renew him at RB, and he's been performing well. But for some reason they just don't rate him enough to put it in to Perez's seat alongside Verstappen, just to give him a run out and see how he does.
He brings in a lot of money. The Honda connection, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's big at the Japanese Grand Prix. Maybe one day they feel they will promote him. It doesn't feel like... But we've been sat here for FP1 and FP2 talking about Colapinto coming through the young driver program. It doesn't feel like Red Bull actually have a very good young driver program at the moment, do they? Is that unfair?
I think they haven't had it.
They used
but now
to.
They're getting more coming through. Isaac Hadjar in F2 looks like he could be the real deal. Hard to know at this time. Harry's making faces at me.
Well, no, look, he's doing very well in F2 right now, and he's very quick. But maybe I'm making that face and being a bit pessimistic, because I just wonder, well, okay, if he wins F2, where does he go next?
He's got nowhere to go.
He does a year in Super Formula like a Ayumu Iwasa, who everyone's forgotten about, who is also a Red Bull junior. And then what? Oh, wait, well, they're both behind Liam Lawson, who's now 2 years out of F2 and has been, the substitute teacher for the RB team, and proved that actually he was matched probably better in the long run than Yuki Tsunoda. And what do? They're keeping him in the reserve role. And I think there's a deadline on that, and I think September perhaps in his contract, and then he's a free agent to any other team. I just don't. For a team that has, cast your minds back to Alguersuari and Buemi, they weren't bad drivers, but they were both cleared and gone to make way for Jean-Eric Vergne and Daniel Ricciardo. Vergne, arguably, was actually the better performing driver than Daniel Ricciardo for the majority of the season, pre-Ricciardo getting the call up to Red Bull. Daniel Kvyat, I mean, bless him, he was in and out, left, right and centre. So there was a time where Red Bull had... Well, they've always had too much talent in their pool and not enough places on the grid.
But they've got 4 seats.
Exactly.
And they had to go outside their stable to get Perez in to the main Red Bull seat.
It's a damning indictment of their academy team and what's going on when you're bringing back Daniel Ricciardo, who, I'm sorry, yes, he was one of the most phenomenal drivers on the grid, but something's not working for him in this new generation of cars, and he's just not cutting it. Secondly, when you go for a driver outside of the Red Bull pool.
But they were also talking
Perez.
to Carlos Sainz.
And Sainz. Although I suppose that is still, that he was a Red Bull
He
man.
was, but he left
Because
he
there was no room.
Because he wasn't happy. They weren't.
And they went for Verstappen instead.
Exactly, which, fair call.
Well, yeah.
You can give them that one. But that's the point I'm trying to make. It doesn't seem like it's actually the academy that we all, we all
knew.
remember.
Yeah.
And that's a strange position to be in. When we talked about it earlier, it's on the podcast actually, should you wish to listen, that Lewis Hamilton is going to Ferrari because of Antonelli, because Toto Wolff lost out on Verstappen because Red Bull could give Verstappen a seat to drive in Toro Rosso and Mercedes had nowhere to put him. And that wasn't okay, maybe it was a while, I'm feeling old now, about 9 years ago. But they don't have that problem anymore, and I don't know, that program doesn't seem to be working for me.
But then again, I see it as well on the other side, that actually a lot of the Formula One grid in some way or another owe their presence to being a part of the Red Bull program.
They do, but where is the talent now?
I'm talking about the current pipeline.
Yeah,
no, I agree. But
the last 3 years, let's say the last 3 years, they haven't really had people coming through, which is why they're in this position. The championship winning team that have won for the last 3 years don't have people to come through and take those seats. There's no one that's a real threat. And Liam Lawson, yes, okay, he's had a little chance, a dabble, and I'd love to see him in the car, but they're not moving people on. And as you say, I don't understand why they're not the cutthroat team that they used to be when it comes to maybe they can't, because mental health is too key, and they trashed the careers and maybe could say the lives of so many drivers that were absolutely talented, and they just burnt through them. So maybe they've learned that they can't do that anymore, but that doesn't seem to be very Red Bull, does it?
I also think their biggest problem is also their biggest asset is Max Verstappen, because he is a teammate destroyer. Nobody has gone up against him and come off well. No one. We all thought Perez would be all right because he was coming in older, wiser, more experienced, less to lose. Well, first year, thought, this could be all right. Minister of Defence doing a brilliant job. Teammates going really well. He's fallen off the cliff and hasn't been able to come back, as we just see Verstappen actually running, slightly locking up and then having to cut across the De La Roja chicane, continuing the tough sessions that both Red Bull drivers are experiencing at the moment, down in 13th and 14th. Look, there's clearly a lot going on at Red Bull at the moment, because Jonathan Wheatley's gone, Adrian Newey's going. Oh, there's a big lock-up in the background, just saw there. I wonder if that's somebody going for a little bit of a spin, but there's no yellow flag out, so just somebody locking up then, going into, I think that was again the De La Roja chicane. But it's interesting times at Red Bull, and we all want to see young talent getting that opportunity. But should that opportunity come at the cost for a likes of somebody like Yuki Tsunoda, who's performing admirably well? But then you've got the Ricciardo and Perez continuing that conversation. Just
think, Williams have kicked out Logan Sargent partway through the season and replaced them with a relative unknown in Colapinto. That's Williams, who don't take those bold moves, who don't end careers, but yet they have. And you wonder what Red Bull are thinking if they're not matching.
Talking of stealing careers, can I steal Andrew Benson's, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can borrow it.
Can I take over the long run corner?
Oh, do we have a Beck's long run corner theme tune?
Can I have one? Oh, that'd be fun, wouldn't it? I won't steal it that much. He's my friend.
Do it. Make Producer Joe.
No, it's fine.
She can borrow it for the time being, Producer Joe. Let's do it.
We can dub it.
Long Run Corner with Andrew
Rebecca
Benson.
Clancy.
Right, thank you very much. I enjoyed that, and my apologies to Benny. His line isn't working, so I am standing in. I'm not taking over Benson, I promise. So he has sent me the data, and he is saying that Norris and Verstappen are looking very even, and very ominously, they are looking very strong. So Norris has made a bit of a slower start to his stint, but otherwise they are looking neck and neck. So in my earlier prediction of the podium, where I said Norris for the win and Verstappen second, I think I'm quids in. What do you reckon, you two?
Yeah, so just looking at the data as well, and also trying to keep track of what's going on. Fernando Alonso's just gone deep, so too has Perez. Alonso having to cut the corner at the Della Roja chicane. Perez finding trouble at the first chicane. So
look at the averages at the bottom. Verstappen's running at 25.069 and Norris is running at 25.147. So they are considerably ahead of Piastri, who comes next at 25.249. Then it's Hamilton, Russell, Leclerc. Oh no, sorry, Sainz is in there as well. So yes, it's quite clear from that data from Andrew Benson. I will give him all the credit that it is Verstappen and Norris leading the way on the long runs, which means we are in for a good battle on Sunday.
Well, look forward to that. Thank you very much, Beck Clancy, via Andrew Benson. Always enjoy a long run corner. I think I've forgotten we got to that point as well. With just less than a minute remain then. Last lap times being set. Esteban Ocon trying to keep a hold of his Alpine, coming through the Ascari chicane, getting a nice tow from the car in front of him all the way down to Ascari. Carlos Sainz is the driver in front of him in the Ferrari, also looking good. So yes, Verstappen and Perez maybe down in 14th and 15th, and Verstappen at least enjoying a slightly stronger run than the data first appears, but equally both cars have been struggling with certainly their braking and locking up and going wide as they push the limits of the circuit, as Esteban Ocon makes his way down towards the first chicane. Hamilton is the quickest driver at the moment, setting that time on the soft tyre early doors, 0.03 of a second splitting him and Lando Norris. Then it's Sainz, Piastri, Leclerc, who are currently the top 5 as the checkered flag comes out. So last lap times being set, and that is the practice running done and dusted for the day, as we almost go 3 wide down the main straight with Norris, Albon and Leclerc all finding their way across the checkered flag. But at the end of that then, it is Hamilton quickest, Norris second, Sainz the top 3 ahead of Piastri, Leclerc. Russell did get some running in the end and managed to go 6th fastest. Then comes Hülkenberg, Ricciardo 8th ahead of Alonso and Stroll, the 2 Aston Martins rounding out the top 10. Bottas is 11th ahead of Kevin Magnussen, who crashed into the wall on the exit of the second Lesmo, bringing out the red flag. Albon 13th, the 2 Red Bulls, Verstappen and Perez 14th and 15th ahead of Tsunoda. Colapinto completing his first full Friday in Formula 1 unscathed, 17th fastest ahead of Gasly. Then it's Esteban Ocon and Zhou Guanyu 20th and last.
So Lewis Hamilton ends the day fastest in the Mercedes, even though he had a hot bottom going through that session. George Russell did get some running. He finished in 6th place. But I suppose a key question from that one, what are Red Bull doing? What's going on? Sergio Perez finishing 15th, and just in front of him, 14th place, Max Verstappen. We heard the long run, but why aren't they out there performing this afternoon, Harry?
We know that they were trying to back-to-back the Franken floors that they've been introduced. A bit of a mismatch of floors, so trying to get valuable data on that, particularly on the long-run pace. We don't know fuel loads, of course, in practice, so there are a number of things that are slightly offsetting the data. Clearly, Verstappen is always strong, really, no matter the track. However, I do think that there is something to be said for the high-speed nature of this circuit and how much of an effect...
The seat is so hot.
Yeah, copy that. We'll have a good look around it this evening.
Hamilton and Bono still discussing how hot Lewis's seat is, but also to do with the Red Bulls. I think it can't be underestimated how taxing this circuit is on brakes as well, and the resurfaced track. We've seen Verstappen and Perez, both of them locking up and running wide in the first chicane, in the Della Roja chicane, and at the Parabolica as well. So pushing the limits, but that's what they do in practice.
It's good to see Ferrari up there as well, 3 and 5, Sainz and Leclerc in that order. Beck, final thoughts for today?
McLaren look very quick. I think the key here will be making sure that Piastri and Norris are on the front row, so that if they have any issues with their start, they can defend Verstappen.
And Franco Colapinto, his first full day as an F1 driver on track. Harry, judgments?
I'm really impressed by Colapinto. Kept it neat and tidy and clean, solid progression, couple of tenths off Albon, and actually looking very strong in all three sectors, not too far away from Albon. We'll see what he's got when the push comes to shove in qualifying, but I think for Colapinto it's just about keeping it smooth and steady and those incremental gains and progressing with every session.
Practice session tomorrow at 11:30. Join us 5 minutes before that. Then qualifying at 3 o'clock again. 5 minutes before that, we go on air. And Harry, I'm looking forward to qualifying. I think it's going to be tight. This track lends itself to people bunching up, and you always got someone that could potentially lose out at this place.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of mayhem, particularly in Q1. Traffic management, everyone fighting for a toe. I still think Ferrari could throw a spanner in the works when it comes to trying to get that one lap pace out of them, and so that could be something to watch. But high-speed track, Monza, it's going to be exciting qualifying.
Certainly is. Make sure you join us. Thank you so much to Rebecca Clancy, who stood in for Andrew Benson so well doing long one corner. We enjoyed you very much. Thank you.
I enjoyed doing Benny's job. It was fun.
Thank you also to Andrew Benson and to Harry Benjamin. Join us, as I say, tomorrow 11:25. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. One more thing before producer Joe hangs up. Checkered Flag podcast. Make sure you listen. We will put it online as soon as we can. Download it from your usual supplier. Bye for now.